Here we are, and we are live. Hey everybody, and welcome to Satsang. It's great to be back, and as always, I invite people to say hello, put something in the chat, tell me where you are, where you're listening and watching from, and also make sure you can hear me. I have been traveling for about 2 weeks. I just got back, so I want to make sure everything is still working. So by all means, if you can hear me and see me, please say hello. Greetings from N1 Kitos, who I think is in Greece, if I don't miss my guess, if I remember that correctly. So so good to be back with you all. And as always, this is your opportunity on Sunday to be engaged fully in the deepest inquiry that you can possibly engage in. I know that during our normal work week and even on the weekends, we are so very, very engaged in all the stuff we have to do, to make a living and to take care of business. And it can almost come to feel as if this whole kind of spiritual inquiry thing is a luxury. But I assure you it's not. I assure you it is, well, to me, it is the most significant thing that a human being can undertake. I mean, simple as that. You realize that, or maybe you don't, everything you experience is a perception that is being filtered through your sense of identity, your self-image. Your self-image, how you see yourself, what you mean, what you're referring to when you use the word I, is the lens through which everything in your life is experienced. It is that, excuse me, it is that deeply significant. This is no joke. How you see yourself determines the quality and character of everything you experience. That's why in self-help and personal development, there's a lot of emphasis on improving the self-talk and changing raising your self-esteem, raising your vibration, and all of that sort of stuff. But spiritual inquiry, specifically in satsang, goes even deeper than that. Because in order to improve your self-esteem, you're actually taking the self-image you have and trying to make a better one. You're not actually questioning the legitimacy of the self-image to start with. And the image that you hold of yourself as being flawed, broken, defective, something has to be fixed, improved, reprogrammed or reconditioned, inevitably leads to more of the same. It inevitably leads to us simply creating a different version of ourselves, which then we discover is broken in a different way than the way that we thought we were. But it never ends. They love to use the analogy of the onion, right? And you peel back the onion and you peel back the onion and eventually you get to the core. If anybody's actually peeled an onion the whole way, it's nothing but peel. There's nothing left. When you get to the mouth, there's nothing there. And that actually makes it a good analogy. But a better analogy for the way in which we approach this stuff, I think, is shark's teeth. We think we're just going to peel back and finally we're going to get to the core, but shark's teeth don't operate that way. A shark's tooth, they have 3 teeth in their mouth At every place where a tooth is, there's a tooth behind it that's, like at an angle like this, and there's another tooth that's just come out of the gum. And so if they lose a tooth, tooth 2 comes up into position, tooth 1 comes into on deck, and then a new one grows. So it never ends. I think this is a better example of the approach of personal development and self-help, that it never ends. You never actually run out of new things that need to be fixed. And it's my mission in life to put an end to that. I don't want to simply substitute one self-image for another. I want to find out who I am. If I find out who I actually am, it's the end of the search. There's nothing left that you have to find out. There's nothing left to improve. There's nothing left to change, because you're now it. You are what you in fact are. And that is such, to me, it's the ultimate. I became aware very early on that the drive to improve oneself was a never-ending treadmill. And I often hear me refer to it as the self-help treadmill. So I'm inviting everyone to question, deeply question, who you think you are, and to open yourself up to the possibility that you are way, way more than you think you are. And that when you discover who you are, the search can end. Self-improvement can end. Now, this is important, because it's not that you don't stop growing. It's not that you don't keep developing, acquiring new skills and learning new things and developing new stuff, new interests, new creative output and the like. But you'll be doing it from the point of view that you're absolutely fine the way you are. You won't be doing it in order to attain a sense of self-worth, a sense of value, a sense of significance, a sense of peace, and certainly a sense of happiness. All the growth and development and evolution will be a result of innate happiness, innate perfection, innate self-awareness, which is a completely different position to come from. You won't get up in the morning seeking to be better. You'll get up in the morning simply expressing who you are, always have been, and always will be. And that manifests itself in an infinitely unfolding array of opportunities and creative impulses and growth and evolution. Growth and evolution doesn't stop. It just changes its purpose. It changes its focus. It becomes an ongoing evolution of expression, not an ongoing evolution of seeking, which is a big, 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 big deal. Let me go see where everybody's coming from today. Let's see. Anne says, hi, can hear, welcome back, be here. Holland, hello from Holland. Morocicles, another loud and clear from Anikitos. Dr. Damien from Ohio, hi doctor. Malajuka from Slovenia. Blessings, Sophie in England, hi Sophie. Michael is in Los Angeles. Barbro is in Sweden, seeing and hearing in Sweden. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Ishta, beautiful day to everyone from Louisiana, USA. Hello, Ishta. Hiron, present, good. Good to see you. He's in the Netherlands. I know him. He's one of my certified facility. He just went through the certified facilitator training. Juan says, hello, GP. Greetings from Dominican Republic. Hi. Sadly, I can't stay in the satsang today, but wish clarity to all viewers to this video. Much blessing. Well, thank you. Thank you for dropping in and staying as long as you can. Liz Love says hi from Jersey. Hi there, Meryl. Meryl, greetings from Oz. I think you're meant to meet an NZ from New Zealand, but Meryl, I think Oz is appropriate. What do you think? Nikki says, good afternoon. Hello from Mexico from Johanna. Hello, Johanna. Nikki is in New York City. I just left there. Now living in Seattle. Ida Catherine, good evening from Norway. Wonderful. Mitch Lighthouse, hi from Sydney, Australia. Hi there. Patang, hello GP from Israel. Infinity Coaching. Hi GP, since last week I bought an expensive musical drum and it's and it's your fault. Sorry, I gotta take the blame. I'm not going to be playing it today. Last time I tried to do it, I couldn't hear it very well, so I'm working on the electronics so that I'll have a nice clear sound, and I will be doing it again. I will be using it on my weekly meditations that I'm doing at 12 noon Eastern on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook/GP Walsh, facebook.com/GP Walsh FB, you'll be able to do that. I'll be sending out reminders to everybody, but that's very funny. That's very funny. Which kind of expensive drum did you get? Did you get the Gouda like I have, or did you get a different one? There's Rav, and there's a bunch of different kinds. Katie says hi from London. Hello, Katie. Oh, Infinity says I'm Sab from Paris. Very good. Sab, is that the way I pronounce it? I hope I pronounced that correctly. Well, welcome to you all, and boy, we're already up to 50 people watching, so I'm delighted. As always, satsang is an interaction. It is a mutual exploration. We're here to explore together, and I really invite your deepest questions, your questions about freedom, your questions about what does it mean to be truly free. And so I'm really inviting all of those questions. What freedom means, freedom is very difficult to define in and of itself. It's actually easier to talk about freedom from than what freedom actually is, because it's so infinite and it's so vast and it's so boundless that you can't actually put it into words. You can only really talk about the effect that it has. One of the big things about true spiritual freedom is an absence of fear. You are no longer afraid for your human life because you've seen that you are more than the human life, than the human form. That doesn't mean that fear won't appear, but it won't grab you anymore. It won't hold you anymore. It won't dominate or intimidate you anymore. You will see it simply as a reactive pattern within the nervous system and nothing more. When you see it as such, exactly as it actually is, without any story or narrative laid on top of it, without any meaning or interpretation laid on top of it, you become the master of fear. The problem is, of course, something comes up that we're afraid of. Maybe we anticipate something going wrong. And the mind does that, right? That's what minds do. It's not a problem. It's just what they do. The mind projects what could go wrong in the future. And that image becomes strong enough that the nervous system reacts to that as if it was actually happening. And you can see the entire thing is imaginary. The whole thing hinges on one little thing that hooks the mind, and that is, well, it could happen. That all by itself is enough to make the mind freeze up. But if You simply see that as an activity of the mind and don't participate in the narrative that the mind creates about it. You find yourself that there's this freedom from fear. And then you can begin to question the identification with the sense of self that is afraid. Now that's a big one. But that's where the freedom actually comes from. It isn't that you, as a limited, finite, mortal person, gets rid of fear and goes free. You begin to see that the sense of identity that you're holding on to is what is attached to the fear. And that without that sense of identity, there's nothing for fear to stick to. The way it works is that something comes up in your environment. It could be anger, it can be fear, it can be disappointment, disillusion, grief, anything can come up. And of course it does, right? We're going through life all the time where our nervous system is constantly reacting to the environment. Well, something comes up and then a feeling arises, right? There's some kind of sensation or feeling. Now, if that's all it is, and you are just aware of this feeling arising, nothing happens. There's no place for it to stick. But what happens is in between you, just the conscious awareness of what's happening, the pure witness, and the experience, a third element arises that says, I am afraid. I am angry. I am disappointed. I am disillusioned. That sense of I is nothing other than an energy within the system. That is the sense of identity that has been created by the nervous system. Believing that to be you is the nature of the egoic mind. And you'll notice that it'll happen. Something will happen. There'll be a sense of I that takes ownership of that. And when that happens, the story begins to spin. Now, what would happen if you noticed that not only the experience in the environment taking place arises, but you are also the witness of the sense of identity arising as well? Suddenly, that sense of identity isn't you anymore. Even though it uses the word I, it isn't you. Just because your mind uses the word I doesn't mean it's referring to you. It's referring to another thought. It's referring to a sense of identity. It's referring to a very complex combination of thoughts and feelings and emotions and memories and associations. That's what it's referring to. And when you look really closely at all of those, you'll find none of them are you. None of them have you in it. I'm getting some questions here, so let me go take a look first. Infinity says he got a rave, a rav drum. Those are great. I had a little contest in my mind which one to get, but that's exciting. Let's see. Davies greets from Netherlands. Hello, hello. Poppy says it's hi. GP, infinite love and awareness. Wonderful. Hiron says, do you think it's possible to transcend sexual desire? Well, without sounding flippant, I would first say, why would you do that? I mean, and it really is a legitimate question. What is the reason for doing that? Would you want to transcend the desire to eat? Is that something that needs to be transcended? See, the whole sexual desire thing has been so distorted by many spiritual traditions and many religious, and almost all religious traditions, which have turned it into a means of control, that we don't even understand what it is anymore. There's no need to transcend that in order to wake up to your true nature. You see it as just a normal part of the functioning of the body. When you see it as such, you are no longer dominated by it. And as a result, you are free to have it or not, because your happiness no longer depends on it. That's actually what transcending means. It doesn't mean getting to the point where you don't care about it anymore. It simply means that it is no longer dominating you. I mean, even the desire for food, right? Oh, I got to eat. I've seen people panic because they get a little bit hungry and they're overweight. I mean, it's like there's no danger here. It's just simply we get used to, or, it's got to be really good food all the time, or I mean, not healthy food. Of course, it should be that, but it's like, it's always got to really taste good. You can't just, have something that's bland, or just eat what's set before you. I mean, many people think that in the Buddhist tradition, early Buddhism, that it was vegetarian. That actually came later. The early tradition of Buddhism is you simply ate what was given. You'd go out with your begging bowl, and if they gave you rice, you ate rice. They gave you fruit, you ate fruit. If they give you meat, you ate meat. You were simply giving, partaking of what was given to you. Now, sexuality is something that can become an addiction. Of course, so can food, right? And so we do have to be careful that we don't turn it into something other than what it actually is, that we don't abuse it, that we don't misuse others, that we sexually objectify others. But that isn't what most people mean by transcend. Most people mean by transcend is kind of this state where you're beyond it all. And what I teach instead is simply see it for what it is. Really see it for what it is. And when you do, you have the opportunity to become free of it dominating you. And you can just feel the energy in your body, but it doesn't bend you to its will. That also frees you to be able to enjoy sexuality and to use it within the context of a relationship that allows that relationship to get to a new level. The use of tantra and the sexual techniques and the spiritual techniques, the bigger exploration of it, it is a marvelous tool between two people for healing very deep childhood wounds. Women tend to collect a lot of traumatic energy in the genitals, more than men do. And so a really wonderful, loving, intimate sexual relationship that is about the intimacy and not about the sex becomes extremely healing. When it becomes non-object oriented. In the West, sex has become object oriented. It's like get to orgasm as soon as you can. But the deeper part of it is that's not what it's about. It's about being completely present in this moment and being totally unselfish and giving in the moment. And then you don't transcend sex. Sex as we know it becomes transcendent. It gets to be part of the picture. Now, there are those instances where people who wake up simply don't have any, they no longer have any kind of drive that way. It's not that the feelings aren't there. It's just that it's like they're happening over there. So does that answer your question, Hiron? It's a beautiful one to explore. I'm giving these answers. As always in satsang, I give these answers. I don't want you to just pick these answers up and make a belief. I want them to stir your pot. I want them to kind of stir curiosity in you. So you begin to explore these things for yourself. And you come to your own vision of what it means. So always take what I say in that spirit. The last thing I want to do is to create a new set of beliefs or some new spiritual concept that somebody holds on to, and then start repeating me instead of somebody else. I don't want that. Everything is about a pointer to bring you to become so curious about your own questions that you just plumb them to the depths. And that's where the self-realization takes place. That's where you acquire the wisdom that is self-generated, that we all have. So does that help, my friend? And Akito says, hello, GP. Peeling onion, and I'm going to actually try to make my screen a little bigger because it's just at that place where it's hard to see. Okay. Peeling onion in search of our true nature, I reach a point that I realize I am just an infinite nothing, that just know itself. But how I will get to moksha? How will I feel freedom? Why don't I feel any better? Beautiful. Moksha, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it's a Sanskrit word that simply means it's like bodhi, enlightenment. It's enlightenment, basically. Knowing yourself as you truly are. This is really important. It's a significant one because people would tend to think, well, I haven't gotten to that infinite nothingness because I don't feel any better. The insight into who you are, the experience of that infinite nothingness is real and true and regarded as real and true. But it has to sink down. It has to move south. You're going to still feel, right? You know, the mind's still active. It isn't gone away. You know, the nervous system and the way it was conditioned is still there, and it hasn't gone away. So when you are looking at the feeling that you have, the question, how will I get moksha, implies the mind has an idea of what moksha is supposed to be. You're having this experience. It doesn't match. Well, how will I get moksha? Right? And when in fact, you're simply sitting at this place of this infinite stillness, that you're just this infinite presence. You say infinite nothing, but that's not really accurate. I mean, it's not that there's nothing there. There's just no thing there. Your true being is not a thing. It is infinite, boundless consciousness, self-awareness. Why don't I feel any better? It simply means there's still a sense of an I identified with feelings that thinks if I attain enlightenment, this is how I should feel. Who said that? How you feel is how you feel. In that moment, who's aware of the feeling? And is the awareness of a really great feeling or the awareness of a really bad feeling a different awareness? Are they two different things? Or is it simply two different kinds of experiences are arising? It's a very important point to be able to move through. Many, many people get stuck here. And they keep going back over the same ground over and over again. Ground you've already captured, you've already made your own, and you keep going back over and over again because you think it's supposed to look different out here. It's not. Stuff is going to come up. Old patterns are still going to present themselves. Old thoughts and feelings are still going to arise. When you say, oh, I am the awareness that is aware of what's arising, and no longer judge yourself based on what is arising, then you are free. Freedom doesn't mean that stuff isn't arising. It means that you don't identify with what is arising. Is that clear? It's subtle, right? Because we all hear the stories about the enlightenment and this perpetual bliss and all the special effects and lights and angels and all of that kind of stuff. But none of that is it. That's all Hollywood special effects. And sometimes there's an enormous emotional release. You know, when you have an insight, something can shift inside and something inside lets go and the energy flows in a different way. And there can be this incredibly huge rush. You know, people will cry, people will laugh, people who just kind of be just struck dumb. But that's the effect. That's not the thing. The reality is the seeing. And when you recognize that you are nothing but the seeing, completely and totally aware of everything that is being seen, suddenly what happens to be being seen doesn't matter. And that's when you gain the freedom. And paradoxically, of course, as that happens, what you experience harmonizes, because there's no resistance to it anymore. There's nothing feeding it anything anymore. It is simply something that's happening. But when you see it as simply something that's arising, it's like you're in the car and you put it in neutral and take your foot off the gas. The car doesn't instantly stop or go away. It gradually slows down. Or when you unplug a fan that's been spinning very fast. At first, you may not even notice that it changed, right? But little by little, you'll see it slowing down. This is the nature of the way the whole energy system responds over time to the insight as to who you really are. It has to take time to adjust. So when you ask that question, why don't I feel any better? I say, who is the I that says it's not feeling any better? And are you not aware of the feeling? And are you not aware of the thought that says, I don't like this feeling. I don't feel any better. I want to feel better. So there's this thought that says, this feeling isn't the way it's supposed to be. Take that thought away, and this feeling is neither good nor bad. It's just a feeling. But that sense of I don't feel any better, that's the culprit. That's the one that you now has just tricked you into re-identifying with the something when you've just experienced the infinite no-thingness. It's subtle. And you know what? I don't want to try to take away that little bit of conflict that you have to resolve, because that's how you get strong. Enlightenment is not simply all the negative stuff goes away. It's when you no longer are identified with it and it's still there. That's where the power comes from. That's where you really become rooted and established in this truth, and not just a visitor, not just a guest. It's not just an Airbnb anymore. You've actually moved in and taken ownership. Does that make sense to you, and Nikitos? Great. Let's see. M. Jones. Do it again here. Still can't. There we go. If we are aware of what's happening as the witness of it, fear, anger, does that not bring an imaginary separation? Yes, it does. But this is very, very important. Oh, this is so important. We can't take on too much, right? You don't want to take on too much at one time. Most people, we obviously long for that sense of oneness, the breaking down of the sense of separation, where I'm one with everything and I feel that connection to everything, because it's a wonderful feeling. But rarely does that happen first. First, what we have to do is see what we are not. Because we've identified with experience, we first have to disidentify with experience before we can see what we're experiencing is actually one with us. Now, I know it may sound kind of weird, but this is the way it works. That's why the via negativa, or the not this, not that, neti comes into play. First, this is not me. If I can perceive it, it can't be me. Therefore, it's not me. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it's not me. And so I keep coming back and back and back and back until I've identified with absolutely nothing, and there's just my pure being remaining. That's the moment of self-realization. Now, once that self-realization takes place, it then turns its attention outward to what it's experiencing. And what is it that I'm experiencing? And that's when the whole universe starts to come back in. We first separate from it. This is the path of Vedanta, or inquiry, which is very precise, rigorous, and relentless until there is nothing left we are identified with. The only thing left is our pure self. If any of you have done Mooji's invitation, the process he takes people through, that's exactly what he's doing. He's simply, you are dropping everything until you can't drop anything else. Now it seems like that's making a separation. It is, but that's the first step, because that separation is actually disidentification. See, as long as I'm identified with things, I'm trying to be one with things. I can't, because I'm seeing myself as someone separate from them. So the first thing I have to do is take away all identification with anything until there's absolutely nothing left except me. And the way to do that is to simply, if I can perceive it, it can't be me. And that should just be logical, reasonable, self-evident, right? The eye can't see itself. If I can perceive it, I have to be here and it there. On a gross level, it's, the objects around us. Okay, am I that ribbon on the wall, that decoration on the wall, a little Buddhist thing on the wall? Am I the blinds? No. Am I my car? No. Am I this shirt? No. Then it gets more subtle. I'm perceiving my thoughts. So am I my thoughts? No, because I'm perceiving them. Am I my emotions? No, whatever I am is perceiving them. So I'm not that. I'm made of something different than that is. Same thing with sensations in the body. Am I my sensations? No. All of those come and go. I don't, because I watch them come and go. So at least relative to them, I'm permanent. They're not. So whatever it is that is aware of what's coming and going is not coming and going. So that now I can disidentify. And I can also, those thoughts, they're describing me, but they can't describe me. So I'm not my thoughts or anything my thoughts are referring to. So now I'm back at this place of just pure being. If you come to that place where you see, I'm not any of those things, however subtle that might be. And some things are so subtle, we don't even have names for them. Subtle feelings and impulses and stuff that go by. And yet every one of those is perceived by something. If I can perceive it, it isn't me. So then what am I? I am the ultimate perceiver that cannot be perceived. Being in that place will eventually open you to self-realization. That is the process of jnana yoga or Advaita Vedanta or Zen. This is where it takes you to that place. And you simply stay there until you are absolute, till realization dawns. And you won't doubt it when it dawns. When it does, then the heart opens. And now everything that I had separated from and disidentified with now becomes what? I'm now looking at it from the point of view of this infinite no-thingness. And I see it as all being in this infinite consciousness that I've realized that I am. If it's within consciousness, then what is it made of? It's made of consciousness. And I see that what I am perceiving is made of the same consciousness that I am. And that's where the two become one. That's where Advaita, or not two, becomes a understood and lived reality. But it does have to go through this twofold path. I mean, I don't know any other way, and pretty much every teacher that I respect will say exactly the same thing. Most people can grasp that it's not me before they can grasp I am everything, which feels more approachable to you. Well, that's clearly the direction to go. First, go to the place of emptiness, Once you get to the place of emptiness, you'll see the emptiness of all things, at which point, everything becomes yourself. Is that clear? Mr. M. Jones or Miss M. Jones, whichever. That's, maybe it's a long-winded answer, but it's really, 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 really important. And I'm so glad you brought it up. This is a twofold path. That's the way, it's the way I work, the way it works, actually. Meister says, GP is absolutely the very, very best. Thank you, Meister. I love that guy. Actually, I think Muji's the best, but that's my opinion. He's my master, so of course I'm going to say that. Juan says, he's very clear. I try to be. Nobody is home. That's great. GP just joined in, Sally from Adelaide, Australia. Hello, Sally. Sally was so wonderful to organize a satsang I did for the meetup group in Adelaide, Australia, at 11 o'clock on Sunday, but it was 11 o'clock Sunday there, which would mean it was 4:30 in the afternoon on Saturday, where I live in Seattle. But we had a wonderful time together. So anybody else anywhere in the world who has a meetup group or a group of people who get together regularly to have satsang and discuss things, or, you know, a lot of them get together and they watch videos from Muji or Adyashanti or Rupert Spira or Francis Lucille or the like. I'm happy to show up live, no matter where you are in the world. If there's enough people, I'll come there. I was just in Las Vegas. As you remember, last week I did an event and then a satsang. So by all means, anybody, just drop me a line. Actually, you can, if you can send an email to gplive@gpwalsh.com, and one of the people who works with me will pick it up and we'll make something happen. So thanks again, Sally, for setting that up. That was really great. That was fun. I got so involved, it kept going and going till my son had to bug me to, hey, come on, your granddaughter's hungry. So Dave says, namaste from Philly. Hello, Dave. Saif S, did I pronounce that? Saif, did I pronounce that correctly? Hi, GP, what is your favorite spiritual practice? For instance, I've been doing mindfulness meditation for months, but have now tried incorporating metta and have reached blissful states of love. Thanks. I don't really have a favorite. I mean, the inquiry that I was just talking about, this twofold path, is what I practiced. And, you know, my practice now is just deepening. My favorite practice for others as a teacher or a guide depends on the person. I usually start with some kind of what you could call mindfulness. I call it the yoga of allowing, or body awareness. Getting into the state where you stop fighting with your own feelings and thoughts and everything, and you very naturally become the one who's aware of them, which is where the freedom lies. So it really depends on the individual and where they are in their practice. I mean, if you have reached places of blissful states of love, what I would say then, the next step is to begin to inquire into who is it that is experiencing these blissful states. Because remember, every state, however wonderful it is, comes and goes, right? Nobody's in a state of permanent bliss, you know. I mean, you get the flu or something, right? Nobody's in that state of perpetual bliss. And even if you're happy all the time, you'll notice that there's fluctuations in it, right? So something is aware of the bliss or the absence of the bliss, the level of happiness, or, you know, the fluctuations. So that's where I would bring you. Let's make a deep inquiry into who you are. Who is it that is aware of the bliss? Right? Because clearly something is aware of it. You're talking about bliss. So bliss is an experience you're having. Who is having the experience? Remember, it's not just about having a blissful experience. If it is, you will at some point not be having that And it will become extremely suffering, because now the absence of it, you're going to feel like there's something wrong with you. But in fact, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with you whatsoever. It's just reality, your true being, is not an experience. It is that which is having an experience. It cannot, in fact, even be experienced. You just are that. So that's where I would take you. Based on what you're saying, notice that mindfulness, or yoga of allowing, or body awareness, or shikantaza, makes you completely and totally content with what's ever happening. You no longer feel the need for things to be different than they are. You are now in the position of the enlightened witness. Now you can begin to explore who is witnessing. Because even the witnessing itself is very subtle, but it too is being perceived. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a word for it. We don't have a word really for the self, because it can't be perceived, can't be objectified in any way. So that's where I would take you, Saif. I would take you to that place, to start putting your attention on that which is experiencing these blissful states of love. Not that there's anything wrong with the states, but just notice that they are being perceived. Who is perceiving them? In other words, who are you? Starlight Glimmer. Hello. Should we try to improve the world that's destroying itself, or just accept it as it is? Oh, thank you for that question. Both. Yeah. Just accepting things as they are can be a way of just basically checking out on life. This is why I am an advocate of the Bodhisattva path, not the path, the Mahayana path, not the Hinayana path, or the path of the Arhat, which is the one who simply wants to transcend this life and go into nirvana and never be reborn again. The Bodhisattva transcends life, transcends all sorrow and pain, so that they can be born again to bring everybody out of suffering. So it's both. If some people have asked me some questions, and I'm hard on the world. I'm hard on the systems of the world which have become inhuman. The greed that dominates the world, and our economic and political systems, mostly of capitalism and corporate ownership, and the possessing of everything, and the exploitation of resources, is immoral. It's insane. It's immoral, and it does push humanity right to the brink of extinction. That's a fact. You shouldn't sit back idly and just accept that. However, if you simply become somebody who is trying to make things better, condemning others and the like, you're not going to get anywhere either. So it's the middle way. Right? You come to a place of equanimity and peace within yourself, but then you can be absolutely pointed about what's happening. Cruelty is invalid, and it doesn't work. War is obsolete. It doesn't work. It's insane. And anybody kept telling me they're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, I would tell them, you're crazy. You're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to realize anything that you set out to realize. So accepting it as it is doesn't mean a resignation. It means that you're no longer reacting to it. Okay, this is what it is. Now, you look really closely, you will see what we call the world is a state of mind. It's a state of mind that humans have gotten into. It's an egoic state of mind, which is so afraid, so narrow and petty that it's only concerned about itself. And it can go so insane that you can have corporations that are literally destroying entire ecosystems and communities for profit, and laws that say they have to do that. The only mandate of a corporation is to make money for the stockholders, and it doesn't matter how they do it. So this is the insanity that we've created. We've systematized in this kind of this insane approach to existence. I'm quite aware of that, but I'm also aware of the state of mind behind it that causes it. So my particular way of dealing with it is to educate, to show people how to rid themselves of the narrowness and pettiness of the egoic mind, which opens the heart to greater compassion, which of course affects then the whole world. How else is it going to happen? You can't enforce these kinds of things. You know, you get some other political party that gets together and we make some other rules until the egoic mind, with its greed and the three poisons, as they put it, and the poison of personhood, which is how Muji puts it, until that's eradicated from individuals, it's going to continue. And those type of individuals who are really addicted to the egoic mind tend to be more aggressive and lust after power, because their idea of power is the dominance of others. True power is the knowledge of oneself and the total acceptance and forgiveness of others. Then you see through the conditioning that these people are acting out, and you become an incredibly powerful force for reformation. I mean, Gandhi overturned the government. At that point, England was the most powerful nation on earth. The sun did not set on the British Empire. And Gandhi single-handedly, without any violence, got them to leave. But he was very much aware of everything I'm telling you about. He was a Vedantist. He was somebody who practiced this kind of things that we're talking about here. He was well aware and completely committed to it. Simultaneously, that grew in him a wisdom as to how to deal with what he had to deal with. There was Czechoslovakia had the Velvet Revolution, another revolution where not a single shot was fired. The power of truth lived will infiltrate. It becomes contagious. And we're experiencing it. There's an awakening going on in the world. So when I say to accept the world as it is, really see it first as it is, which is simply the activity of the egoic mind on steroids. Seeing it clearly as it actually is, the functioning of the egoic mind is the power that will eventually dismantle it, because it can't hide. It hides as, this is the truth, this is who I am, it hides in the darkness. When you bring the light to it, it can't hide anymore. And the infection will be removed. We will be inoculated against it. And I am 100% sure that we're not going to drive off the cliff. We're going to get real close. We're going to be teetering. It's going to seem like we're not going to make it, but we are. That's my view of it, and I'm very confident in that. So I hope that helps you, straight glimmer, that it's not too ambiguous for you. Hiron says, thanks for clarifying. The reason for my question is that it's hard to imagine one could be truly free and not pretending with such a powerful desire unfulfilled. Well, not true. Hiron's the one that asked about transcending sexual desire. You simply experience it as unfulfilled. If it's okay for you that it's unfulfilled, that's transcendence, not getting rid of it, but recognizing, well, there it is, it's in my body. And of course, it's a big demand. You get really, really hungry, eventually, or thirsty, eventually, that's pretty much all you think about. This is different. Sexuality isn't different, is in that your physical life does not depend upon it. Sexuality is, where eating, breathing, and drinking water is the survival of this. Sexuality is the survival of life itself. So that's why it has the same kind of power behind it. But you're truly free when you recognize it for what it is. You're not free because it goes away. You're free because you're no longer identified with it. You see, it's the function of the system, right? You blink your eyes. Is that a problem? Right? So this is there. And yes, it can grab thought cycles. right? Surely did. I remember. I mean, not as many as much anymore. I'm older, but it certainly can grab those. But but take away all that story that somehow it's domineering you. It isn't. It's simply a function of the body. The moment you realize that and totally accept it, you become its master. You don't have to make it go away. It's a big one. Thank you for asking that question. Meister says, extremely trapped because I understand in my mind, inside my heart, that I do not want to be kind of a wage slave. And I keep asking myself the same question. Why do I have to be here? Same question over and over and over. Okay. Yeah, the mind does that kind of stuff repetitively. First off, why do I have to, that I do not want to be a kind of a wage slave? Well, first off, the wage slave is a thought. That's an idea you've had. You have said, I'm working for a living, therefore I'm a wage slave. You've created that little bubble of interpretation of your experiencing, and now you're suffering it because nobody wants to be a slave. You're not a slave. You can leave anytime you want. You may not like the consequences of leaving, right? So you are exchanging one thing for another. You can even look at it more deeply, though. Just look at the job that you have as providing for you now, providing your needs now, while you explore this. I've done so many jobs. I mean, I've had jobs that were like the pinnacle, designed systems for, that had never been done before. I've done commercials and voiceovers, things that were, had a little glamour behind it. But I was a mailman. I was a cook. I did roofing jobs. And it first, kind of hurt my sense of identity. Little by little, I just began to say, well, life is providing for me. Why am I here? Why am I here? I'm here to wake up. That's why I'm here. That's the only reason I'm here. And that's the fulfillment of my purpose. And as I awaken, I share it with others. And that happens very, very naturally. So you're here because this is the perfect environment for you to wake up in, including the job you have, right? Or even the fact that if you don't have a job or you're struggling, it's all part of the ultimate point, which is wake up to who you are. That's why we're here. We are not here just to enjoy stuff. Once you know who you are, you will just enjoy stuff. But if you don't, life will just be a struggle of trying to get and hold on to eke out a little bit of happiness. You're not a wage slave. Stop calling yourself that. That's self-creating suffering, just self-image. You're aware that there's a preference that you'd like to be doing something different. Just be aware of the preference. Don't try to get rid of it, but notice that what you're doing and the preference are in a conflict. Don't take sides. I'm a wage slave because I want to be doing this. You've just taken sides and you've made this wrong. And all that's going to do is create suffering. Step back, become the peacemaker. Don't take sides. There's a natural desire that arises in every human being to growth, expansion, freedom, creativity, very natural. And there's the need to survive. Hence, there's a job and there's money and I'm surviving, right? So let them both be there. Don't take sides. Don't have, notice that there's a preference, but don't jump on it. Don't make this side right and this side wrong. Just see them as both natural aspects of the flow of energy of a human being, and then watch what happens. See if they don't find a way to begin to reconcile. In my experience, eventually they always do. But first, we need to grab the blessing of becoming the peacemaker, the one in the middle who is not stuck on either side. It's the stuckness that creates the suffering, not the circumstances. Is that helpful, my friend? And Akito says, thank you very much for your answer. It was great insight, as always. Good. Glad. Lamont Stewart, wow, GP, keep dropping the wisdom. This is fun. You know, when the wisdom dawns, and it's nobody's possession, wisdom doesn't belong to somebody. You know, it's not that I am wise. It's just that I've lost the sense of who I was, and I see that wisdom just happens all by itself. There's nobody here that's wise. I don't know what my next thought's going to be. Certainly don't know what my next word's going to be. Your questions contain the answer. So one comes out of your mouth and one comes out of mine. Who cares, right? They're emerging. The question and the answer are both emerging, originating in the same place. So wisdom is not a personal possession. And you'll find that the less and less you are identified with the mind and the body, and the more and more you realize you have kind of established yourself in that no-thingnessness of pure consciousness, you will find that wisdom just happens. It's your nature. Wisdom is your nature. I always like to point that out, because, we're all bozos on this bus. Nobody's any more special than anybody else. I've even heard Mooji say, Mooji, no big deal. God could raise 1 million Moojis. Right? And that's really the truth. It is, recognize that the wisdom you are perceiving is actually coming from and to you. And because the words come out of my mouth, the recognition that what I'm saying is true is coming from you. That recognition is your guide. That's the insight. That's the true guru. Let's see. Sally says, hi from London. Hi, Sally. Love your teaching and wisdom, GP. Well, Holly covered the wisdom part of it. Awareness says, hi from Trinidad. Wow. Have you been here before? Is it? I maybe remember, but this may be a first, somebody from Trinidad. That's fantastic. Sean Dixon, hi from Scotland. Wow. I have an intellectual understanding to some degree. It's enough to feel the body as much as possible. Oh, yeah, it is enough. And what does not come and go? Sorry, just signed in. What's the best practice? Well, the first thing is drop this. People say that all the time. I have an intellectual understanding. No, you have an understanding, right? It isn't the ultimate yet. But there's kind of this tendency to demean our perception of reality because it hasn't sunk into the emotions or the life yet. It is the real thing. It is a vision. If you see that and go, wow, that's really true, that's understanding. That's not intellectual, right? Intellectual is when you've reasoned it out, and you can use the intellect to kind of break down the borders, break down assumptions, break down the stuff that's obviously not true, that opens the door for inspiration and intuition and insight to dawn. But intellect isn't the intellect that has the aha moment. Something else clicks. In intellect, we just use it, and if you use it correctly, it'll bring you right to the boundaries of the mind, and then allow you to walk through them. So notice that, as you said, you are seeing things come and go, right? And that's really valuable. And you'll see that every experience comes and goes. And you'll also notice that the Buddha is right, that the clinging to that which comes and goes is the cause of suffering. Trying to make the impermanent permanent is suffering. You could also call it stupid, right? I mean, it's not going to get you anywhere because it's impermanent by nature. You can't make it permanent. People try. I mean, that's all the world is doing, is trying to make permanent that which is not permanent. So you are watching it come and go. What is it that's watching it come and go? And notice that isn't coming and going. If it's not coming and going, it's made of something different than all of those other things. And then deepen that sense. Notice that it's thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and the sense of identity comes and goes. And just watch it become increasingly subtle. And just that's all it takes. And then don't listen to the mind. It says, well, what else? What next? Because the mind is looking for some object to hold on to, and there isn't one there. This is why it becomes uncomfortable. You get to this place and you say, well, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of things that come and going. Who am I? And then the mind immediately wants to jump in. That's the habit. That's what the mind does. You notice that too is coming and going. And just go to this place. You know, the sharpest knife in the world cannot cut itself. What you are, the ultimate absolute perceiver, cannot perceive itself. There's nothing there to perceive. It is not an object, therefore it cannot be perceived. It is no thing. It is boundless consciousness. Even that's a word, and of course, the moment I say a word, the mind has an idea of what consciousness is. I mean, all that we can do is turn increasingly to this place that we cannot see, but we know it intuitively because we are it. I don't have to convince you that you exist. But the mind wants to make that existence into some kind of an object. But when you see that that object is always coming and going, and that you're not because you're perceiving it, you can see that existence itself does not come and go. It is not an object. It is not a thing. And that sense of being is not being as something. It is shunyata. It is emptiness itself, not nothingness. It is just empty of any discernible, distinguishable characteristics. It just is. It is without being something. It is pure existence. I just am. Not as this or that. I just am. And I am even before the thought I am could emerge. You have to be there first, obviously. Before even the sense of being could emerge, you have to be there first. That's the pure, ineffable, unknowable, mysterious truth of being. Does that help? What exactly is the self? Is it the undeniable sense of being alive? Yes. Mooji always points to the heart, but it isn't the heart as in the organ he means. So dropping into the heart confuses me. Can you explain? Yeah, Mooji is simply bringing you out of the search for an object. But he even goes beyond emotions too. So the heart is closer to the fact because it's a felt thing, right? The ultimate heart, and even not the heart in your chest, the physical heart, and not even the emotions. The heart is simply that felt sense of existence that you have, right? That's not emotional, right? It's not a physical sensation, but this existence. We feel this, but what is feeling the body is just this pure existence. It is just the sense of being, not even being alive, because that kind of connotes, the body and life and all of that. This is prior even to life. It is the simple sense of being. That is the heart of everything. And it is beyond knowable, right? That is, it is beyond knowable as any kind of form or object or concept. It is not unknowable in the sense of course you know that you exist. And that's a great exercise in and of itself. How do you know that you exist? If I say, do you exist? You answer yes. Right? So in between the time when I asked the question and you answered yes, where did you look? Where did you go? Do I exist? It wasn't just thoughts, it wasn't just feelings, it wasn't just the body. There's a sense of existence. Now, when we are meditating on that, it almost seems as if that is something other than myself. But then I, like Muji, I mean, got this from Muji, would simply ask, what's the distance between you and that? The distance between the sense of being and yourself? No distance. Are they not then the same? But of course, in that oneness, there's a bit of a struggle with that because the mind can't go there. Because the mind has to have two. The mind doesn't have two. It doesn't know what to do with it. And so it resists going to this place where it doesn't exist. Because there is no mind there, because there's no thought there. But really, is there two? Am I, the sense of existence and the knowing of that existence, are they different? And that is a very deep meditation, and it's one we all have to come to. That's the answer to the question, is awakening. Does that help you, Sean? I just got a question mark. Oh, thanks, GP. I appreciate it. Thank you. Got it. Good. Oh, no, that was Saif says, thank you. I appreciate it. Sean says, good. Sean said, oh, back. What Gandhi did was called the power of nonviolence, which is a violent tactic hidden in benevolence. It's a cunning move dressed to impress the ignorant, easily influenced. Well, it wasn't violent. I'm not really sure what you, about that, Sean, because he was called the power, which is a violent tactic. I mean, if you mean that the violence was simply getting the English to leave, well, then I guess so. But he didn't fire a shot, didn't raise a hand. I mean, the common definition of violence, it was not a violent revolution. Neither was the Velvet Revolution. And they were not easily influenced. It was not easy for them to do. I mean, there was riots and stuff that did break out, which, you know, he did the hunger strike to say, I will just starve myself unless you stop doing this. So I'm not really sure I agree with that. So, but I'm not really a historian. You know, I just use it as an example of somebody who who was spiritually aware and politically and morally active, socially active at the same time. Robert Goldberg, hi from Southern Nevada. Hi, Robert. Not too far from where you were last week. Enjoyed the music. I've listened to a lot of videos on your website. I want to let it be a lot. Great. I just want to let it be a lot. I'm assuming you're meaning like the Beatles song, Let It Be. Yeah, just allow things to be as they are. That is not resignation, and it is not withdrawal. It is very much an active engagement, but it comes from a very different place. By the way, don't be a snob. Menial jobs are just as good as corporate greedy whores. They're better, actually. If I sounded like I was demeaning those jobs, I'm not. You know, it's just that working. You know, I had to come to the point where I saw whatever you did, whatever came to you, is just part of the path, and nothing is better than another. And I totally agree. Somebody just kind of doing an honest day's work, providing a good service, are way more valuable to society than some hedge fund operator, because they produce nothing, whereas the kind of jobs you're referring to, they actually produce. They provide a service. They're beneficial. We can completely do away with Wall Street. It's destroying the world. Want to let it be a lot. Oh, it continues, Robert, but hard to do. Advice? Yeah, recognize that letting everything be as it is an inner practice, right? And that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to act. Letting it be does not mean simply going along with whatever is there. Oftentimes we need to act. But if we're acting from a place of power without an attachment to the way it should be, we will be the most effective at bringing out the best that any moment can produce. That's simply being present, showing up without an agenda, but totally present, willing to do what it's needed, willing to say what needs to be said or do what needs to be done, makes you totally powerful and influential in any given moment. If you show up with an agenda, which means that things should be different, right? You're not going to see things as they are. You're not going to see what's actually happening. You're not going to be aware of any subtleties underneath, and you're not going to be effective. You're just going to be like everybody else, trying to bend the circumstances to their will. So it's not as if you show up and say, well, it's okay, whatever happens. You're there to bring about the highest possible good. But to do that, you have to show up completely open and empty. If you don't, you will end up contributing to the same conflict that everybody else is. Sean says, you did scoff when talking of your old job, so you did take a side, rewatch, and relearn me, old son. Well, okay. Okay. I mean, I've had jobs that were not they were not high-end jobs. Yeah, I suppose it could sound like that because I've done high-level things and things that were rather glamorous and things that had no glamour in them whatsoever. To me, I don't see any difference in them. Matter of fact, the biggest lessons I learned, I learned lessons in every single one of them when I was present in the job, just doing whatever was demanded of me in the moment, whether it's something very big and creative or something just absolutely redundant and just required me to be efficient. So, contemporary classical guitar by Laird Mintz. I have been watching you for months. I can't put into words how much an impact you have on me. I have an incredible deep respect and trust in the things you say. I wish I'd give you a hug. Someday I'm sure I'll get to wherever you live and we'll do that. Continues, I try to extrapolate your examples to my life's own unfulfilled desires. Instead of lamenting on what has not transpired, I use these examples to improve myself of the self. Not 100% sure what you mean by that, but I mean, if you lament on what has not transpired, yeah, you will suffer, right? And it's something we all have to learn. We all get into positions in life where we want it to go one way and it goes another way. And learning to be fluent, to move, to not take a position, right? To be willing to let go of that position, and to just allow life to unfold itself is the lesson we all have to learn. It's not an easy one. The ego struggles. It does not want to surrender. It wants things the way it likes it. That's why it's much more drawn to things like metaphysics and the law of attraction than it is to this, because those things don't question the self. Right? They don't. It's all about getting to the point where you always get what you want, not about not getting what you want is what's going to make you grow spiritually, because it's going to make you let go of who you think you are. And the more you get, the more reinforced it is. Spiritual growth is not that. But I always want to point out that it's not easy. This is not easy to actually allow yourself to flow with life as it is happening. and to be willing to enter into the invitation to constantly be set aside your ideas of how things are supposed to be, to allow wisdom to emerge. I mean, it's a high calling, and the reason you're all here is because you've been called, and it's a very high calling, and it's not for the faint of heart. Genuine spiritual practice is not for the faint of heart, for sure. Sean says, your description hit me like lightning. It's what I've been needing here for the longest time. Finally, clarity, internal gratitude. Oh, wonderful. Good, good, good. Very glad. Very glad. Where'd we go? Oh, he says, can everyone go to Buddha at the gas pump site and fill in the form for GP and ask friends to do so? It takes 5 minutes. It would be great to see GP on Batgap. Just go to the website. Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, by all means, it would be great to be a guest on that show. That would really be fun. Those of you who are not familiar with it, I think it's batgap.com, or it's batgap.com. It stands for Buddha at the gas pump. And it was Rick, can't remember Rick's last name, who started it, but it's just interviews with people who are making you awake or on the way to awakening or making a huge contribution in spirituality. And just the point that you meet people like this all over the place. And we don't really, they're not always an ochre robe sitting up, surrounded by flowers. Sometimes you can meet a Buddha at the gas pump. So thank you for that, Sean. Infinity Coaching, hi again. Been bonging along on my imaginary future rap drum to the beat of your vibes. Thanks so much, GP, Sab in Paris. Rhymes with lab or fab. Oh, Sab. Okay, very good. Sab in Paris. Yeah, I did that, used the drum a couple of times in meditations, and it worked way better than I thought it was going to, because I just gotten it a few days before. It's not like I didn't know how to play. I played drums since I was 5. So I knew percussion and I studied music. So I had an idea of how to make my way around it, but I'm just brand new. But the instrument itself has such a wonderful feeling that it was like really had a deepening effect that even took me by surprise. So I will be using it in the future, especially as I get better. I may even try a little bit of singing. I haven't done that in quite a while. Mark C says, hi GP, a confession. Oh, confession. I have come to the path out of much pain and trauma and sort of used the Dharma to get rid of my pain. I now know that just being and inclining my heart soul to what is enough. Yeah, I did too. Let's face it. People come to the spiritual path to be free of suffering. And at first we will use the Dharma, the teaching is all truth, as another way of trying to compensate for our suffering. And that's, people get frustrated about meditation and they can't get their mind closed and quiet and all of that sort of thing. And it really is just part of the path. It's not a big deal. Little by little, wisdom dawns. The fact that you got on the path at all is like, yay, right? Buddha's happy. Right? Because as I said before, this is not an easy path. This isn't a path for the faint of heart. This is the path for the sincere. And most of us become sincere because our suffering eventually we can't compensate for it anymore. We can't deny anymore. We can't pretend anymore. We can't distract ourselves anymore. And we really begin to confront the suffering that is inevitable when you are identified with the body, with the person. You cannot help but suffer. Bliss is the nature of true being. Suffering is the nature of the egoic mind. You cannot be with the egoic mind and not suffer. People want to stay with the egoic mind and get rid of suffering. You can't do it. The two are one. It is the source, and the substance of the egoic mind is suffering. So the fact that you Oop, where's the confession? Where'd the confession go? Forgot, missed it. There it is. The very fact that you recognize that you've been using the Dharma as an escape means you've already stepped out of it, right? When you're identified with it and you're just doing it, you don't know you're doing that. You think you're doing the Dharma. So more light has emerged because now you see, oh my God, that's what I was doing. So the very fact that you're seeing it means it's on its way out. It's over. Its days are numbered. Don't turn it into something, oh God, how do I get rid of it now? It's gone. It's already gone. Unless you hold back onto it, think, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? Just rejoice in the fact that you've just stepped into a new level of consciousness and you are now aware that what you were doing before was not the true Dharma, which means that you are now closer to the true Dharma. So just rejoice in the seeing. You know, the way to wisdom is when we see our own stupidity, when we see the pain we've caused ourselves and others. When we see it and we go, oh my God, and actually see it, see the effect that it has, see what it does to others, to see the things that the pain and suffering it creates, that's when our hearts get torn open. That's when compassion emerges. And many people go see that and they get embarrassed. They want to hide it. They think there's something bad. They I got to practice harder. It's not that at all. The seeing has happened. Your practice is working. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing it. You know, the ego is losing its influence. So enjoy. Sean says, we need GP's interview on Batgap. It is an online forum. It's a great message to share. If we all do, he'll be there soon. Just follow instructions on the site. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you to everybody who does it. That's simply the way they do it. It's become so bad. I think it's the most popular spiritual podcast and video as well on that there is out there within the entire genre. And the only way somebody gets on is a bunch of people, enough people say we want to have them on as a guest. That's the only way that they do it. Contemporary classical guitar by Laird Minx. I guess your name's Laird, right? I use these probably unfulfilled frustrations to better understand the self and not identify. Perfect. Perfect. Use them. They are the opportunity. We don't want the mind to go away too quickly. We want to become strong, right? When you're working out with weights, as soon as you can do one easily, you don't say, this is great, I'm done. You put on more weight, right? And of course, the analogy falls apart because you don't want to just keep going on forever. But that's it. The interaction with the mind, seeing through it, seeing clearly how it acts, what it's doing, its nature, that's how you become established in the truth. All of you have had a vision of it. All of you have had a recognition of it. All of you have seen yourself to some degree. How it gets established is by being willing to be engaged with the mind and the ego. So until you see it absolutely clearly for what it is, then you will see its nothingness. And even after you see its nothingness, it will still be active for a time. So you're right on the money. I'm getting there, and in part, thanks to you. Wow, I'm so glad to help. Thank you. I love your answer. Yes, yes, yes. I am willing to enter into the invitation. Very good. Yeah. Would you ask that to people all the time? Did you accept the invitation? Which is to drop everything, to leave your mind outside and come in here where there's nothing but you right now. Infinity Coaching, my friend Sab, inspiration of the evening. I'm not pretentious enough to call my own little chats online satsangs, but I found a way around this. I'm going to start doing sub-songs. Very good. Very, 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 very good. If you are speaking from the heart and you are inviting people into their own inquiry, which you are simply facilitating, you are doing satsang. It isn't a huge qualification, just honesty, experience, some accumulated wisdom, and a deep desire to not teach others, really, but to invite people into the inquiry. That's satsang. That's what it's all about. And if you look at it as a person, whether you're nobody's ever qualified. But if you approach it as showing up so that the wisdom of the universe, the Buddha wisdom, can speak through you, and whatever form that takes to invite others home, then you are qualified. That wisdom is always qualified. Nobody is home, which is Sally. Hello, Sally. Yes, it's not an easy path, GP, but I found that the calling for truth overtakes the seeking for happiness once the self gets out of the way and the source takes over. Absolutely perfect. Yes. And I love the way you would put that, and I'm going to steal that from you. The calling for truth overtakes the seeking of happiness. Truth includes happiness, but it's a different kind of happiness. It's not the emotional happiness. There's plenty of that's there, but that's going to come and go. There's going to be highs and lows. It's just as you awaken, the lows don't crash. The lows they just kind of settle into stillness and contentment. So it's not a seeking of emotional happiness anymore. It becomes more about the truth. And then you find that the truth possesses all the happiness there is. The true happiness, because it's the truth, right? So whatever you get from the truth is the true thing, is the real deal. And it's not the kind of happiness that's a cheat, doesn't come and go. It's actually quite consistent. It is very still and unmoving. And you'll find that that's the same as consciousness. I mean, just look at your own life. That which has been aware of every event in your life is that's happiness. That's ananda. That is the happiness that is unchanging. It's more stillness, contentment, imperturbability. It's just a presence. Sean says, I know we are not our bodies. However, I try and picture the concept. What is the best approach when considering myself? Picture myself as formless awareness? This is hard, although I know it's true. Very good though, right? Yes, all you can do is know it's true. Don't try to picture it, because how can you picture nothing? You can only picture something, right? Like by nothing, I say no thing. There's nothing there that can be pictured. There's something there, of course. It's the infinite something. You can't picture the infinite, can you? You simply can't do it. So instead of trying to picture it, and that's really your mind trying to hold on to something, just give it the word. It's just pure awareness, but let yourself dive deeply into the experience of being aware. And so it becomes a visceral, intimate, more, it's even hard to say, experiential. It covers all levels. It's not conceptual. It is experiential. And of course, you experience being all the time. What we're simply doing is bring our attention more and more to the sense of being and noticing all of the things that we are aware of. And the impulse to identify with the things that we're aware of. So just keep coming back to that place. That's all you have to do. Just keep coming back to that place. And the mind will say, well, okay, now what? Say, well, now nothing. This is it. There's no other place to, where else am I going to go? This is it. And it's difficult. The mind's always wanting to go, what's next? What's next? And those of you who've done the invitation, that's one of the things Mooji says, no next, just this. just this as it is. Just this. It's a common phrase in Zen. Just this, nothing else, just this. This is the end. And you'll notice the mind says, no, it's got to be something, it's got to be something. And notice that you're aware of that. And that you are aware of the mind doing that. And that awareness is not asking what's next. It's just experiencing whatever comes next. But it doesn't have any attachment to there being a next. Just focus there. Just keep going back there. Just keep going back there. Mark C. Stories, the tribe, even my vision and creativity are lovely, but they are not the holy I am, the one who knows and sees. Correct. Yes, they're beautiful. And especially when you're no longer attached to them, they become more beautiful. People become more fun. Love becomes more interesting. Intimacy becomes more intimate. Creativity becomes more creative. Little things become really enjoyable. Insignificant things become beautiful. Water becomes wine. That's what he meant by that. It's an absolute transformation of how we perceive things. The end result is that everything gets bathed in this brilliance of the pure love that is consciousness. And it really is pure, unmitigated, untouched, objectless love. Thanks for your comment on satsangs. That helps a lot. From Sab. Yes, yes, yeah. There's an inner qualification that takes place, and it grows out of just humbly recognizing that all wisdom comes from the same source. The Prajnaparamita, as they say in the Heart Sutra, which is called the mother of all Buddhas. It is the source of all. This wisdom is the mother of Buddhas. It is this wisdom that I'm referring to that gives birth to the Buddhas. And so it'll give birth to you, who is just another face the Buddha is wearing. M. Jones says, is this a dream? Yes. It is a dream in the sense that it is everything you experience is a perception and subjective. The point of it is not to try to make all of this nothing. The point of it is to see that it is non-objective, that what you experience does not exist separate from you, that it has no inherent existence. It is not objective. There is no matter. There is no material world. Perceiving the world as separate from myself, the world becomes objective, self-functioning, self-organizing, doing things to me. But when I see that I experience nothing outside of my perceptions, like a dream, we wake up in the morning, we realize the dream was subjective. Was the experience any less real? No, not at all. But we don't see it as being something happening to anymore. We see it as being self-generated. And so from that point of view, using the term dream becomes very instructive. It helps us break down this idea that there's a world out there that we're fighting against, rather than fighting we're only dealing with. The only conflict is the one we ourselves have created. And we believe that our thoughts about the world are the truth about the world, and they're not. They're simply our perceptions of it. But we don't experience a world. We only experience our perceptions. That's a big one. And I don't expect anybody to get that like that. If you do, great. It can happen. And I don't expect anybody. So I don't put a lot of attention. I keep going back to well, who are you? The pure awareness that is aware of everything else. Then you'll begin to see that everything is subjective. Everything is a matter of perception, including all the others, including yourself, and that there's only one that is having the perception. But we don't need to go all the way in there. Just stay with, I'm not this, I'm not that. Neither this nor that nor both nor neither. I am simply perceiving it. So whatever I am is different from what I'm perceiving. We'll worry about what you're perceiving and how later. First, let's establish you as who you actually are. LFC Delec, as usual, great explanation to you. Peace, thanks as always. Alan Watts talks of having no method. There is no method in that being just is, but sometimes the ego thinks meditation, etc., is a method. With a smiley. Yes. Ultimately, no, there isn't. And you begin to see that. But that doesn't throw methods out, right? If you practice Vipassana or Shikantaza or Zen or any or yoga or Qigong or any of it, it doesn't eliminate those. But you just come to see that the ultimate truth is not a technique or a process or a method, nor is it the result of a method. Yet the preparation that allows us to experience, to walk through the gateless gate, you could call a method, right? So again, it's neither this nor that. It is not this or that. It is a flow between them. It is the perfect middle way. It is not something where you are, you're stuck. It's got to be a method, or I got to throw it. There are no teachers. I had somebody castigating me. I had on one of the YouTubes that there are no methods. There are no teachers. You can't. And it's like he was stuck in the absolute, right? And if you do that, right, of course, you're going to push everything away, and you're going to, which of course is a method. Oh, now I'm pushing everything away. So you realize there's just no way to do that without getting stuck. So don't get stuck, right? When the method is there, use it. When it's exhausted its use, move on to something else. You don't try to, beat the dead horse. Just recognize that everything has temporary value, right? So every method has temporary use. It's going to bring you to a place, right? Great. Once it's brought you there, you don't need it anymore, As Ramana Maharshi says, if you fall into a thorn bush, you may need to pick up a thorn to help dig out the rest of the thorns. Once those thorns are out, you throw that one away. Or the stick that it's used to stir the fire. Once the fire is done stirring, you don't have to stir anymore. You throw the stick into the fire and you burn that up. All techniques and teachings are like that. And ultimately, you fall into simply the pure knowing of who you are that does not require a technique to sustain it. And that's the freedom of the path. But that doesn't mean that you reject all methods before it's time. You can't do that. Then you're stuck in the absolute. And that is a more difficult place to actually liberate people from, because it's true. You can look at it and go, well, yes, of course, there are no techniques. It's just what we are. And if you fully realize that, then you're right. But if you do fully realize that, you will be compassionate and totally sensitive, using skillful means for the benefit of others. You won't force somebody beyond where they are. You'll meet them where they are, which is the heart and soul of the Bodhisattva path. Sean says, listening to you makes me realize how little of the truth I know and have been living. Thanks for the boost. Wonderful, wonderful. It's a fantastic insight, isn't it? Right? At first, you kind of go, ooh, God, look, oh man, I thought I was doing that. But then stop for a second and go, wow, that's great. I now see it. The moment I see it, I'm no longer fooled. They can't convince me to buy that anymore. Fantastic. I've actually taken a step up. Believe me, you will live it more now. You will. You can't help it because you've seen. The eyes have been opened and you have seen. Well done. Excellent, excellent. Laird says, can you explain how we are everything? Because everything exists because of our knowing of it, and therefore we are it. Yes. Those of you who are listening to me who have no idea what he's talking about, don't worry. It's not 100% important. You'll get there. You realize that who you are The substance of who you are is the knowing itself. You are not someone who knows things. You are the knowing, which is the closest word we can get to this pure awareness that is not a thing. It's like, oh, awareness, and then it's aware of stuff. It is completely singular. It is unified. It is one without a second. And therefore, that which is known, that which is knowing are one. And so everything, how we are, can you explain how we are everything, cause everything exists because of our knowing of it, right? So, but we see knowing, we habitually think of knowing as a subject-object relationship, right? I am this, you are that, I know you, which simply means I'm having an experience of certain aspects of being. But once I know who you actually are, and that there's no self there, and that all I'm interacting with is the universe as a whole, and that's what I am as well. You see, it's the universe knowing the universe, or more accurately, awareness, self-awareness, aware of itself. And that self-awareness is the universe through all time and space. Does that help, Laird? And again, anybody who finds that, it's pretty deep. Don't worry if you don't strain over it. Stay with the sense of this is, who am I? I am the one that perceives everything else, and I myself am imperceivable. I cannot know myself through the normal channels of knowledge that we have all become used to. I am not an object that can be examined, categorized, or described in terms of other objects. I am unknowable as far as the mind is concerned, but I am not unknowable to myself. I just cannot know it through the mind. I have to know it through some other means, and that some other means is simply self-realization, the experience of yourself as yourself. Hadao says, what do you think of Bentijo Massaro? His teachings is great, but something about him appears to be like he's occupied by an enlightened ego, and his organization has been accused to be a cult. I don't know him personally. I don't find him to be a fully awakened being. There is still an element of self that I perceive. That doesn't mean that couldn't vanish at some moment. So I don't know. I haven't met the gentleman in person, so I don't really like to comment about it. What I would say is trust your own intuition. If you feel something kind of putting you off, don't go there. Right? As far as the accusations of being a cult, people accuse people of all sorts of things. And if it is found to be substantiated, well, then it'll be its downfall. It'll fall apart, and it will have to. And those kinds of things do have to come out. If there is a teaching that makes the teacher superior to the student rather than one with the student, if the teacher is telling you that the answer is coming anywhere but from you, then it's not a true teacher. The true teacher recognizes that they are simply reflecting back to you which you are not ready to accept for yourself. The teacher is a mirror, nothing more, and claims no special place. The guru is simply that which dispels darkness. That's what guru means, that which dispels darkness. And it's actually within every one of you. And there's a term in the Hindu, in the Sanskrit, Sadguru, which is the inner guru, the ultimate guru. And the ultimate guru is the inner wisdom that is in every one of you. And as that dawns, the outer guru, which is simply a symbol representing it, disappears. You don't need it anymore. There's still love for it. Mooji is a fully enlightened master, a living Buddha, and you still see him shed a tear over Papaji, kissing his picture. I mean, he is still deeply, deeply moved with gratitude and love for his master. That's the kind of real deal that you want to get to. So, you know, whatever you are drawn to or not drawn to, you don't believe anybody else. Trust your own feelings. If somebody you're drawn to, let yourself be drawn, but aware. And if something doesn't feel right, don't go there. You don't have to. And the rest will take care of itself. The truth will purge every less than perfect teacher from whatever needs to be purged. It'll happen. It happens to everybody. That's the truth's job, to purge things away. And if there's something destructive about the organization, it'll get purged. It will. It won't last. So you can just kind of trust in the beautiful, in the dominance and power and ultimate authority of truth. Clay Sue says, when I experience perception, it drops and there is only ... I'm assuming you mean that there is only the emptiness. Perfect. Yeah. The absolute is prior even to perception, because it perceives perceiving. The absolute is undescribable. The only thing to describe it is pure silence. That's why Ramana Maharshi oftentimes never said a word. People would just sit in his presence and awaken, because it was the silence that was the essence of his message, and that's what he was talking. It's beyond everything. Or as they say in the Heart Sutra, gone beyond, gone totally beyond. LFC says, wonderful answer, thanks. The absolute position is a form of paralysis by analysis. Yes, anytime you take a position, relative and absolute are clearly opposites. They arise together. You can't speak of the absolute without speaking of the relative. You can't speak of enlightenment without speaking of delusion. So what we're talking about in the reality is beyond enlightenment. It's beyond nirvana. It is beyond nirvana and samsara. That's the Mahayana. That's the great vehicle. That's the ultimate path. Laird says, where'd you go, Laird? There he says, thank you, sir. I love you. I love you too. Thank you. LFC, the difference between a cult and an organized religion, that organized religion owns a lot more real estate. True. As Frank Zappa said, heavenly bank account. I regard capitalism as a cult, as a fundamentalist religion, because it's a position, right? It's the only economic system that works, and nationalism is cultish. If there's no flow, if there's no openness, if there's no willingness to consider, you have cultishness. You have fundamentalism, and it can take the economic form. It can take political, religious, spirit, anything. Organized religion owns a lot more real estate. That's great. Mark White, hi GP. Now and again I feel overwhelmed at work. I'm not sure why, so I try my best to keep positive and be happy, but it doesn't work. No, it's not going to. Any ideas what I should do when this happens? Yes, completely and totally surrendering to feeling overwhelmed. If you do, you can't be overwhelmed. You can't be overwhelmed. What that means is you're having a bunch of experiences. There's a lot of stuff coming in. There's a lot of demands on you at the moment. It feels as if it's too much. And your mind is saying, sorry, I just got distracted for a second. And your mind's saying, I'm overwhelmed. That's just a thought. Put the thought away, which is just an interpretation, and just go 100% with the experience, and you will find you're not overwhelmed at all. That it's simply, this is what's happening in this moment. Maybe intense, maybe uncomfortable, maybe demanding, maybe stressful. But as long as you are not fighting with it, simply, there it is, and letting it be there, the conflict is gone, the suffering is gone, the overwhelm is gone. So Jill says, isn't anti-capitalism a cult too then? Absolutely. Somebody who says, no, it's not that, it's this. All the isms are wrong, right? right? It's simply a matter of what works and what doesn't. What serves the highest interests of humanity and what doesn't. What can we borrow from that makes life better for everybody and what doesn't? That's not cultish. To reject something, you rebel against something, you shouldn't be this, or you should be this. It's equally invalid, because all it's doing is solidifying you into a position, and that's suffering. So, does the system work or not? Parts of it work, well, take those parts. But yes, anytime you take a position, whether it be a rebellious position or a conforming position, you've taken a position. As a kid growing up as a teenager, I was totally rebellious, and I thought I was free. Didn't realize I was defining myself simply in antagonist, as an antagonist to what I considered to be, demand for conformity. But so then I conformed to being a rebel. It took a while before I realized that I was being just as controlled by the whole thing as somebody who is a total conformist. And that's when I began to see through that, and to begin my journey towards not taking a position, which simply means that I'm open to the value of all positions. But my values are not based on the position. Right? My values are simply based on what's most loving, which I think is a good place to start when you're trying to organize a culture or a society or a family or anything. So, all right, questions have slowed down. Damn, I got through them all. Isn't that great? This is wonderful. So I want to thank you all. It's been 2 hours. All right, 2:59. So thank you all so much for being here. This is a great place to bring it to a close. I'll be here next week, as always. I actually have created in addition to the Patreon account that I have, which helps me by giving regular people who can contribute regularly. Even a buck a month really helps out. It really helps me offset the cost of all this and the equipment and everything that I have to do to make this happen, which is patreon.com/GP Walsh. I also have a donate button on my site if you just want to give a one-time donation to help me out. And just go to gpwalsh.com/donate, and you'll see a little button there. So obviously, if you can't, you can't. It's fine. But if you can, and this is valuable to me, valuable to you, it does help me. I have a class I think I'm going to be starting on the energy system, that I use the model of the chakras to actually explain a lot of the stuff that goes on within the energy system, coming up in January. I'm going to be doing a little EFT gift for Thanksgiving. Lots of people find a lot of relief from suffering in EFT, so I like to use it. Every Wednesday on Facebook, I do a live meditation. It's going to be live most of the time. Sometimes I may have to do a pre-recorded one depending on my schedule. And as I mentioned before, I am doing more live events. So if you want me to come to your city and you can help us organize something. I mean, I was in Las Vegas. I made enough money to cover my expenses. So I don't have to make a profit out of it. If I can just break even, I'm good. So for your city or to speak to your meetup group, I'm wide open to that. Again, just send an email to gplive@gpwalsh.com. And Helen said, "Oh, GP, you missed my question. Maybe I need to find out for myself." Or you can send it to support like donate site has no percent to anyone else. Like donate. Oh, there's a site that actually doesn't take any percentage. Well, I think the PayPal, because that donate button is through PayPal, and because it is a donation, it does not take anything for itself. Patreon does. There's nothing I can do. You can do recurring through PayPal as well. At any rate, so I think that covers all of the newsy stuff that has to happen. So thank you all. I love you all. See you next week, or maybe on Wednesday.